Although they had a decently talented roster and a good head coach, expectations for the Vikings heading into this year were pretty low, as Sam Darnold was slated to be their starting quarterback for the entire season due to an injury that JJ McCarthy suffered in preseason. However, through 8 games, the Vikings are 6-2 and they are looking like a playoff team. And since we are at the midpoint of this year's NFL season, I figured it would be a good time to come on here and talk about just how good and how surprising the Vikings have been, and just how good of a team they really are. Now, before we do get things started, of course, go ahead and hit that like button if you guys end up enjoying the video, since it really does help out my channel a lot. And of course, subscribe if you guys are new and you guys end up enjoying this video, since it really does help, so you guys don't miss out on any new content like the one you're watching right now. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get this thing started. Now, for starters, the Vikings' offensive supporting cast is super good, to say the least. Their weapons are amazing, as they got Justin Jefferson, Justin Jefferson. He's maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL. You got Jordan Addison as well, and he's one of the better wideouts in the league. Jalen Naylor has played quite well for them. And at tight end, you do have TJ Hawkinson. And TJ Hawkinson, he hasn't played that many games this year, as he was recovering from a torn ACL that he suffered towards the end of the 2023 season. But when he's on the field, TJ Hawkinson is one of the best tight ends in the league. Along with that, you do have Aaron Jones at running back, and Aaron Jones has been very good for them, and he's, again, one of the better running backs in the NFL. And the Vikings' offensive line is also not that bad either, as according to ESPN, they are 8th in pass block win rate. However, they are also only 19th in run block win rate. But either way, Minnesota's offensive line is not that bad. Now, unfortunately, Christian Darrisaw did suffer a season-ending knee injury, and that is devastating to say the least. But Minnesota still does have a very good offensive supporting cast, and their offensive line is not too shabby. And speaking of his injury, to try and replace him, they did trade for Cam Robinson. And Cam Robinson, while he's not nearly as good as Christian Darrisaw, he is still a pretty solid tackle, and I do think that he can be a good placeholder for the rest of the season. And not to mention, besides all the, how stacked they are at the skill position players and how decent their offensive line is, they have Kevin O'Connell as their head coach. And Kevin O'Connell, he's one of the best head coaches in the league right now, and he is an extremely good offensive mind. Now, although the Vikings had a very good offensive supporting cast, one of the reasons why so many people thought Minnesota would be so bad is because of their quarterback play, like I said before. I mean, Sam Darnold, he was terrible for the Jets and Panthers, and because of that, a lot of people like myself understandably, doubted him heading into this year, despite the fact that the Vikings had such a good, supporting cast. But Sam Darnold has actually played quite well for Minnesota this year, and he's a big reason why their offense has still remained quite good, and a big reason why Minnesota is 6-2. And I mean, he's just been a very big surprise, to say the least. I mean, as I'm recording this video, he's thrown for 1,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 7 picks, and he's done that on pretty good efficiency. And he definitely does have some turnover-worthy plays, and he does sometimes hold on to the ball too long, and, his pocket presence could be a little bit better. And he does have his flaws, and he's not some amazing quarterback. But with all that said, Sam Darnold has still been pretty decent for the Minnesota Vikings, and you gotta give credit where it's due, because, I mean, if Sam Darnold wasn't playing like this, there's no way in hell the Vikings would be 6-2. So, yeah, Sam Darnold, again, he's been very solid for the Vikings, and the Vikings offense this year, they've been pretty good, to say the least. Defensively, the Vikings have also been pretty good, and it feels like forever since Minnesota last had a good defense. I mean, they've had their defense has been pretty bad for quite a while now, but last year they actually improved quite a bit on that side of the ball, and this year they've become a legitimately good unit defensively. And as I record this video, their defense ranks, they're the 6th best team defense statistically. They're 1st in run defense, 7th in scoring defense, 4th and 3rd down defense, are 4th in points per drive, and they rank highly in efficiency stats. And overall, the Vikings defense, they've played very well. I mean, their front 7 is legitimately good, as they got guys like Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel off the edge. You also got Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace at linebacker. Plus, they did draft Dallas Turner in the first round of this past year's NFL draft, and I thought he was pretty good coming out of Alabama and a top 3 edge rusher in the draft. He hasn't gotten that much playing time this year, but I definitely think Dallas Turner could be pretty good for them in the future. Their secondary is also not that bad, and I mean, before their secondary was like dog shit for like ages, but this year it really hasn't been that bad. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, despite the fact that he's, pretty old, he's still one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL. Josh Metellus is solid. Byron Murphy, he's okay. Shaq Griffin, he hasn't been that bad of a depth piece for them. Plus, you got Harrison Smith at safety, who's really good despite the fact that, he's really old. And Cameron Bynum is also pretty good at safety. And we also can't forget about Brian Flores, as he's a fantastic defensive mind, and he's maybe the biggest reason in Minnie's defensive turnaround. I mean, you can say whatever you want about how he handled the Tua situation when he was the head coach for the Miami Dolphins, and while he definitely didn't handle that situation well, he's still a very good defensive mind, and in my opinion, I thought he was a solid head coach for the Dolphins outside of that Tua situation. But again, the Vikings defense, like I said before, they've played quite well this season. I think it's largely due to their run defense and their front seven, and their and their ability to also get pressure on the quarterback. I mean, Brian Flores is really good when it comes to dialing up blitzes. And yeah, man, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings defense, I mean, if you're a Vikings fan, you got to be happy at how this defense is played, especially given the fact, that their defense, beforehand was just so bad for ages. But yeah, the Vikings, they've been very good on both sides of the ball. They're just a really talented team. You got a lot of good players. You got a really good coaching staff. And again, you got pretty serviceable quarterback play. And of course, and all of that has led to them being one of the best teams in the league. And, if you ask me during the first 5 weeks, I'd be like a little bit doubtful since, we were still early into the season. But now that we're like about 9-10 weeks into the year, I think that it's safe to say that Minnesota is one of the best teams in the league. So now that we've gone over their team and the players and the coaching staff, I do want to talk about their remaining schedule. So their remaining opponents right now are the Jaguars, Titans, Bears twice, the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Lions. And if the Minnesota wants to continue to overachieve and make the playoffs, in my opinion, all they really need is for Sam Darnold to really just continue this level of play and for the defense to just not fall off a cliff. And it is possible that, that Sam Darnold and his defense are just on some fluke insanity run and that they just fall off. But me personally, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Sam Darnold will continue to be a solid quarterback, and I think the defense should continue to play very well. So again, as long as those two things remain constant, Minnesota should make the playoffs. Now, the NFC North is extremely difficult, as you got the Lions, the Packers, and the Bears. All three of them are playoff caliber, and at the bare minimum are playoff contenders. And the Lions are, one of the best teams in the league, and they're one of the teams that the Vikings lost to. And the Packers, they could be Super Bowl contenders, and I mean, they are a very good team as well. But while the NFC North is really difficult, I think Minnesota should win like 9 to 11 games and and be a playoff team at least. Now, while they definitely should make the playoffs, in my opinion, are they really a title contender? That is definitely something a lot of people will wonder, given the fact that they do have one of the best records in the league. But me personally, I'm going to lean no. And the reason why I say that they aren't a contender is, one, Christian Darrisaw's injury is a little bit concerning. Again, Cam Robinson's not a bad placeholder, but he's not as good as Christian Darrisaw. Plus, one thing I've noticed ever since the second half of the Packers game is that Minnesota's offense definitely does have a bad habit of going dormant in the second half, and it has led to teams coming back and, nearly beating them. Plus, along with that, Sam Darnold, while he has been solid, he does have some turnover-worthy plays, and he can hold on to the ball for a while. And again, while Sam Darnold definitely hasn't been bad for the Vikings, I do think a large reason why he's been, so good is because of that supporting cast. That's not to totally discount, again, what he's done this year, but again, if that supporting cast wasn't nearly as good, I definitely don't think Sam Darnold would be playing as good as he is right now. Plus, I mean, to win a Super Bowl, a lot of people think that you need an elite quarterback to win it, and Sam Darnold's not an elite quarterback. I mean, I definitely think he's a solid quarterback, but a lot of people have doubts about if you can win a Super Bowl with the solid quarterback. And, you know, who knows if, again, like, who knows if Sam Darnold really is good enough for the Vikings to contend. But, I mean, either way, if you are a Minnesota fan, you got to be very happy about how this year's gone. Even if you guys, you know, lose in the wild card round, you know, the Vikings have had, like, a really successful season, and not many people thought they'd be this good, you know, this season. But that's pretty much all I have to say for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. Of course, hit again a friendly reminder to like and subscribe. And of course, check me out on social media. The links to my Twitter and Instagram are in the description below. But without further ado, I'm out, you guys.